2.3 million blocks, 5.75 million tons of limestone, 20 years of labor under one pharaoh's name. This is how the Great Pyramid of Giza rose from bare desert. Around 2560 BCE, the architects of Khufu surveyed the Giza Plateau, searching for a level limestone foundation strong enough to bear a mountain. They chose a natural rock outcrop on the western bank of the Nile, only a short march from the river that would deliver their stone. Teams of surveyors stretched cords between wooden stakes, sighting stars to align the future monument almost perfectly to true north. Quarry foremen marked the limestone bedrock with red ochre. Carpenters assembled sleds. Ropes were woven from papyrus and palm fiber, and the first encampments for laborers took shape across the sand. The plateau was no longer empty. The first task was leveling. Workers cut channels into the bedrock and flooded them with water, using the still surface to measure differences in height across the base. The error across 230 meters of foundation was less than 2 centimeters. Meanwhile, in quarries only 300 meters from the site, teams of stonecutters drove copper chisels and wooden wedges into the rock, freeing blocks that averaged 2.5 tons each. Larger granite slabs, some weighing up to 80 tons, would later travel 800 kilometers from Aswan by river barge. The fine white casing limestone came from Tura, on the eastern bank of the Nile. Each block was logged, numbered, and matched to its final position by scribes who kept meticulous records on papyrus. Royal storehouses fed thousands of workers daily. Egypt, in effect, had become one vast construction site. With the bedrock leveled and trenched, the first course of stones was set directly onto the rock. These foundation blocks, some weighing 15 tons, were dragged on wooden sleds across paths kept wet by water carriers. Recent experiments suggest that pouring water onto the sand ahead of a sled reduces friction by nearly half, allowing 20 men to haul what would otherwise require 40. Mortar of gypsum, ground limestone, and water was spread between the joints, gluing the structure as it grew. Each side of the base measured 230.4 meters, the four corners aligned within a 1/16 of a degree of the cardinal points. The internal galleries and the descending passage, cut through bedrock at a precise angle of 26 degrees, were planned and excavated before the masonry rose above them. Khufu's monument now had a footprint. The pyramid grew in horizontal layers, each core slightly smaller than the one below. Workers organized into gangs of about 20, with names recorded by graffiti still visible inside the structure today. The Friends of Khufu, the Drunkards of Menkora. They lived in barracks near the construction site, ate bread, beer, fish, and beef, and rotated in shifts of 3 months at a time. Contrary to long-standing myth, these were not slaves but paid laborers, drawn from villages along the Nile during the agricultural off-season, when the river's annual flood made farming impossible. As the first 10 courses settled into place, internal corridors began to take shape. The descending passage, cut through bedrock, was extended upward into masonry. Ramps of mud brick, rubble, and clay snaked up the rising faces, allowing sleds to be hauled higher. The lower third of the pyramid was nearing completion. By the middle of the project, the pyramid had reached around 70 meters, a structure already taller than any cathedral that would stand in Europe for the next 30 centuries. Within its core, the architects placed the so-called Queen's Chamber, a small limestone room with a corbelled roof, perhaps an early burial space later abandoned in favor of a higher one. The ascending passage, sloping upward at the same 26 degrees as the descending corridor, was prepared to receive massive granite plugs that would seal the pharaoh's tomb. Quality control was constant. Surveyors checked angles. Foremen weighed sleds. A block out of square could throw off every course above it. Stones quarried locally were used for the bulk, while finer Tura limestone was reserved for the outer skin. The work proceeded by daylight, year after year, in a rhythm that became the heartbeat of the kingdom. At the heart of the pyramid, work began on its most ambitious interior, the Grand Gallery. 8.5 meters tall, 47 meters long, lined with polished limestone, its corbelled walls stepped inward in 7 precisely cut courses. Above it would sit the king's chamber, built entirely of red granite hauled from Aswan. 9 ceiling beams, each weighing between 25 and 80 tons, were lifted into place and arranged as a flat roof. Above those, 5 additional chambers of stacked granite distribute the immense load of the pyramid's upper mass, preventing the burial chamber from collapsing. Each granite beam had to be raised more than 50 meters, an engineering feat still debated by archaeologists today. Theories include long straight ramps, spiraling ramps wrapping the structure, and counterweighted lever systems. Whatever the method, the granite chamber stood completed, ready to receive Khufu and his treasures. With the king's chamber sealed below, attention turned to building above it. The pyramid had now reached more than 100 meters, its mass tapering toward the sky. Ramps had to be extended each time the structure rose, an effort that consumed nearly as much material as the pyramid itself. Some Egyptologists estimate the ramp system alone required more than 1 million cubic meters of rubble and mud brick. As the courses narrowed, fewer men were needed at the top, but each block had to be hauled longer distances and lifted to greater heights. The blocks themselves grew smaller, easier to maneuver. The 4 sloping faces, each rising at an angle of 51 degrees and 50 minutes, converged with mathematical precision. From the valley below, the silhouette began to acquire its final form. The summit was now visible from Memphis, 25 kilometers to the south. At the top, the final block was the pyramidion, a single carved capstone shaped as a miniature pyramid in itself. Once likely sheathed in electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, it would have caught the first and last light of the sun, visible for kilometers across the desert. Its placement marked a moment of ritual as much as engineering. Priests of Ra performed ceremonies recorded on papyri, now lost to time. The completed height reached 146.6 meters, a record that would stand for nearly 3,800 years, until the spire of Lincoln Cathedral in 1311 finally exceeded it. The pyramid's mass, around 5.75 million tons, rested entirely on a base no larger than 9 football fields. Yet despite that weight, the structure had not settled unevenly. Khufu's monument was, at last, complete in form. The work, however, was not finished. The outer faces had to be dressed with Tura limestone, the finest white stone in Egypt, cut and polished to a near-mirror finish. These casing stones, each weighing several tons, were laid against the stepped core and then trimmed downward from the apex, course by course. The result was 4 smooth triangular faces so flat that ancient Greek visitors compared them to the gleam of polished metal. Joints between casing stones were less than half a millimeter wide. The base perimeter, measured today, varies by no more than 58 millimeters around its entire 920-meter circuit. Surrounding the monument, workers laid a precinct of paving stones and built 2 mortuary temples connected by a causeway running down to the Nile. Smaller satellite pyramids for queens, and a vast cemetery of mastabas for nobles spread across the plateau, all aligned to Khufu's masterwork. On the day of dedication, the Great Pyramid rose from the desert like a polished mountain. Its faces reflected the sun so intensely that the structure was known in ancient texts as Ikhit, meaning glorious light. Inside, Khufu's sarcophagus rested in the granite chamber, sealed behind plugs that would defy intruders for centuries. Beyond the precinct walls, a city of priests and craftsmen continued the daily rituals required to honor the pharaoh in eternity. Over the next 4 millennia, earthquakes loosened the casing stones, medieval builders stripped them to construct Cairo, and the outer surface eroded back to the stepped core we see today. Yet the bulk endures. 2.5 million blocks remain in place, aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal points, holding the geometry the original architects set down. The Great Pyramid is not only a tomb, it is the largest precision instrument the ancient world ever built.